By now, you've probably heard my magic wand story. It's a brand that's been part of my personal journey for more than 20 years. But no matter how many times I sing Magic Wand's praises, I'll never be able to fully capture the story of this incredible brand. Well, now journalist and author Kate Sloan just completed a limited audio series documenting the history and impact that Magic Wand has created over the last 56 years. It's called Making Magic. And the series chronicles Magic Wand's incredible brand story through interviews with nearly 40 experts, performers, business owners, educators, and fans. So I got a sneak preview of this series, and what I loved is that Kate weaves together snippets from all their interviews into this amazing story arc. She covers Magic Wand's journey from appliance store massager to its legendary influence on culture and sexual independence, and it's all just fascinating. The first episodes of Making Magic are available now at makingmagicseries.com or on all popular podcast platforms. Just search for Making Magic or visit makingmagicseries.com today. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily. On today's show, I'm talking about texting versus talking in a relationship because it makes more of an impact than you think. And I'm taking your calls. Topics include what to do when you want multiple orgasms. I mean, who doesn't? But your partner thinks you're just being greedy. Okay, now that you're in a healthy relationship, how do you master mindful sex? And you found your teenager in bed with his best guy friend. How do you address it without making him feel judged? All this and more. Thanks for listening.
Look into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by sex. Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
Hey, Emily, you got a boyfriend? Because my man E here, he just got his heart broken. He thinks you're kind of cute.
A girl's got to have her standards. Oh, my.
Do women know about shrinkage?
Isn't it common knowledge?
What do you mean, like laundry? It shrinks?
Can we not talk about sex so much?
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God, it feels so good.
Being bad feels pretty good. But you know, Emily's not the kind of girl you just play with.
You're listening to Sex with Emily. We're talking about sex, relationships, and everything in between. For more information, go to sexwithemily.com. Check out all the things we have going on the site. And also, we have a contest going on. So you guys know that it really helps when you subscribe to the show. So it really helps. I see your reviews. And that helps us know what's working in the show to make it actually a better show. So we appreciate that. So to enter our new contest, just send us a screenshot of you subscribing to the podcast and your review on iTunes or wherever you listen, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. And you just send that screenshot to feedback@sexwithemily.com. The contest ends 3/20, so get on it. It's easy to do. If there's no place to comment or do a review, you can just email what your review would be with a screenshot of you subscribing or following the podcast. We're going to pick 3 winners, and they're going to win some awesome prizes. You're going to win sex toys, some lube. You're going to see. Just enter now. You're going to love it. Also, you guys, if you're not already, follow us on all social media. It's @SexWithEmily across the board. We love to do that. And check me out. SiriusXM Radio Stars, Channel 109. I'm there Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 Pacific, which is a blast. If you want a free 30-day trial, visit sexwithemily.com/SXM. And here's the thing. Even if you don't subscribe, you can still call me. 888-947-8277. I'm there 10 hours a week. So call in and say hi. Ask your questions. All right, guys, enjoy the show. We've been talking here today a lot about texting and relationships and the impact it has on our lives. And I feel like I struggle with text overall, meaning I literally sat there with my assistant, Michelle, last night, like, I got to catch up with text. They overwhelm me sometimes. It's almost like people know that you got their texts and you don't respond. It's a whole thing. But then you bring in dating where people don't want to talk on the phone anymore. I want to talk on the phone. But a lot of things, as you know, they start out with someone sending you a text and then you text back. And then this is even getting into the dating apps. This is just like someone you meet. So you're flirty, texting. And then my whole thing is that, like, if you start texting, you're texting so much, because you guys know I started dating someone a while ago and we were like texting for like, all of a sudden 4 hours went by. It was a while ago. And I was like, we could have met. We could have not met. We could have just saved this time and done something else. And then you text, you're doing all these things and it's taking up a lot of time. But then so that's my problem, that if you have just met, so if you meet someone online, for example, I think you should meet them right away and not text. But last night, I'm following up a text, and there's a guy that I think is cool who's been hitting me up for a while to hang out, maybe date. We've had a flirty thing. So I text him, and then he texts me back, and then we're texting for a little bit. And then he sent me this really awkward, weird thing that he had written. And I was like, oh. And Michelle, my assistant, called it a boner kill, which it kind of was. I was like, oh, it's funny. We're texting. And then it was like this weird, and I didn't know how to interpret it. And so I thought about, like, what do you do with text? Like, there's so many misinterpretations that I would rather we just talked on the phone at this point. I was happy we were texting all the time. And I feel like, and then I was like reminiscing back to the day where we didn't have text and you had to talk to someone. You'd meet him in person, or you would talk on the phone. Like, you meet them and they call you, you'd set up a date, and then you'd already know. Like, sometimes you'd meet someone, you'd have a vibe, and then there'd be a phone call, and then you could decide then, yeah, I'm not sure, maybe I felt something, then you go out with them and then you meet them in person. But right now, we're getting addicted to this texting, and we think that says something about somebody, that they're actually telling us some information that's useful, meaning how we're going to like them. But so much of communication is nonverbal. We don't know their body language. We don't know how they, if we're even attracted to them in person, their energy, the way they move, all the things. And so all the time we're wasting by these things that are not that are not helping us make good decisions. And I want to get on the phone already and just talk to everybody.
There's this thing about sometimes when you're texting someone, even if it's not a partner, and you're just like, if I just call you real quick, this would be done so much faster instead of someone just being like on their phone and being like, oh, I'll text back when I want to. And I would prefer to know the information now.
Right.
So don't do that. And then it just keeps that person more accountable. And I don't know about this, but for you, Emily, when you had dates back in the day and you would set like a day and a time.
Yeah.
Do you think people were more accountable to keeping that?
Yeah, people didn't flake. I didn't even think flaky. That's such a, when I moved to LA, everyone's so flaky in LA. Like, I don't remember, like, you would keep your commitment unless something happened. I was talking to my niece. Some guy asked her out on the way home from class. She met him, and then he texted her and asked her out. This is how this all came up. Mm-hmm. She's 20. Then he texts her, and he's like, hey, did you finish the homework? And I was like, what are you going to say? We were on FaceTime. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, I don't know. And then it's like, okay. Then we hung up, and then we started talking about, okay, we'll cut back to me in college 20 years ago. I met a guy after class. I remember this. Jeff, he was cute. He played the drums. And I'd seen him at the bar playing his instruments. I think he was in a band. And he walked me out. He's like, how about Thursday night? And then we made the plan, and then he showed up Thursday night at 7. And or maybe he would call me on the phone that you'd shared with your roommates. The whole thing, but it was more of a call, so you know. But the thing about texting, it got me down this whole other path where I was thinking about the dopamine rush that I think I just solved why people aren't having, they say millennials aren't having sex, but why everyone is having less sex. Mm-hmm. Texting has the same effect as an orgasm.
What?
So when you text someone, you get a dopamine rush. That's why we're all addicted to our phones. It's not because we're learning so much and we're taking French or something and like learning a new language. I actually want to take Spanish and actually use my phone for good. But I feel like most of us are like staring at the phone. It's because we are addicted. And it's so our brain chemistry, something that we're spending so much time on, which is texting and rewards, getting likes on Facebook or Instagram. We put so much energy into it. It's going to alter your brain chemistry. Like anything, like porn or video games or our phones, it's going to make us hooked on it. And so that affects the dopamine in our brains. So we become biochemically addicted to getting the texts, right? So that's the dopamine causes to keep seeking more and more texting. But when you're having sex, it's the same thing that's released when you have an orgasm. When you have an orgasm, you get dopamine released and then you're satisfied.
How many texts do you think would equal the same amount of dopamine as an orgasm?
Well, I'm telling you, if I think that people aren't having a lot of sex, people are like, I think it's the phones, sort of throwing that as a throwaway comment. But I actually think it is because of the phones. I think if you're on Snapchat, Instagram all the time, and you're constantly being stimulated by your phone, whatever rewards you're getting, you're not going to masturbate if you're a woman, maybe, because you're not watching porn. I don't know why younger girls aren't masturbating. There's a lot of reasons. But you're not going to be seeking out sex either. That just solved it. So get off the phones. I just don't want, and here's the thing, we just sit there for an hour, just me catching up on texts from like the last week and a half. No, how was it the last day? It was the last day. Because I have a new thing, I'm trying to get to texting to zero by the end of the night. They used to call it inbox to zero was a thing like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Every day you should return every email, which I don't do that. I never got quite to zero. But with texting, it's like you have to. So it was leading up to a thing. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't even know that this is healthy. I'd rather bring back the phone. And especially in relationships. Then it got me thinking about the guy we were talking to in New York who was like, oh yeah, I've got a boyfriend. It's a whole thing. And then he was like, oh, but we actually have never met. It's been 4 months of talking and texting. If you don't meet someone in person. So technology is keeping us from, we are all seeking intimacy and connection, and we're falsely getting it fulfilled by our phones.
I guess this is more of a personal, like person to person thing, but do you truly believe that you can create this connection with someone purely without having met them at all? Like,
no, because you're only getting half of the story. You're hearing their voice, but you're not like seeing them, touching them, smelling them, the whole energy. Like I don't think you can really fall in love with someone because of their voice or the story. I mean, yes, there are times where people just met and there was great chemistry, but it's only telling you a very small part of the story because most of our communication is nonverbal.
Oh, that just reminds me too, in a way, of like catfishing.
Yes.
And how they're like, well, I didn't think you would accept me for my looks, but everything I told you was the truth and the real me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I'm sure that is true, but it's also the real you and the truth that you want them to see. You get to decide when it's just through a computer screen. So that's just interesting. So are they really being their true selves?
No, I think that we're thinking and we're like, where we get to respond to text, we get to stop and we get to think about it. Then we get to be funny and we get to look up words, make sure we spell them right or be funny or whatever we do. Mm-hmm. We overthink it. Whereas if it was in real life on the phone, that's when you're getting your more authentic self. I mean, I think texting wasn't, created so it'd be like, hey dude, running 10 minutes late. But now it's how we're having whole relationships with our partners. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in a relationship. Jamie, you said earlier you heard of a couple who decided not to text.
Yeah, they decided.
And I love that idea.
It's so great because they basically were like, everything that we talk about can be on the phone or in person, and we'll only text if we're running late or there's like
a change,
just a quick change that they can't talk on the phone that moment. Which it kind of makes sense because if you start out texting all the time, eventually you're going to get to a point where that's just not feasible, and then where do you go?
Right, exactly. Then you have to meet and have conversations if it's only so I think my message is right now, there's like a few messages here. If you are one of these, because I think these people, there's more people out there than we realize. If you're right now into someone that you have not met in person, I have 3 messages, I think.
Okay.
That you've not met in person and you met them on a dating app, or maybe you met them once and you've been texting for, I don't know, over 2 weeks to 2 years. People do this for 3 years, 4 years. I'd say if it's over 2 weeks and you don't have a plan to meet this person yet, then make that plan or end this relationship because it's a waste. You'll never get that time back.
Because do you think that someone that's doing all of that is going to actually invest their time elsewhere? Right,
exactly. They're not making an effort to actually meet. We were not valuing in-person connections and communication anymore. So I think end that. If you are hanging on to something or someone, and I think for many people it goes on for months and months. So just decide if you want to meet them or not. Or if you still want to just have a texting friend, they're not your partner if you have never met them.
And what was that thing you said earlier about how you never, because now grammar is such a thing with people. It's a pet peeve.
You could be dating someone who's a terrible speller back in the day, but you would never know because they never wrote you anything. They weren't because now we're all what's your biggest deal breaker? We're bad speller. You didn't know then, but you'd hear them, and you wouldn't care if they wrote you a love note and it was misspelled. So we're discarding people for he was a bad texter. And then there was a guy that I dated because he was a great texter. I've learned all these lessons, so you don't have to. And it was a thing, and I realized after a while dating him, it was long distance, but it was LA, San Francisco, that I was like, oh, he's just really funny on text, but in person, no, I'm kind of bored. So make decisions. Yeah. So make decisions about that. The other thing is that I think that try this in your relationship. I love the idea of sending a sexy text throughout the day to your partner, saying something that's meaningful to them, but not just relying on text to communicate everything in your relationship. Maybe one phone call would solve, if you're parenting or living together, a phone call. I'm telling you, when you FaceTime with someone, even you hear their voice more so than texting, it's going to enhance that connection. And my third point, what's my third point?
Just let's fucking talk to each other.
Let's talk to each other more and get off our phones. No, my third point was too, is that I used to go out and that when you're in public, I don't care if you're single or not, because we were talking about how I would always meet people in line waiting for places, or in the bathroom, like waiting in lines. Okay, Saturday night you're at a bar. There's a bunch of girls lined up, and you'd make all these friends, and you talk to people anywhere you were, unless you had a book with you. And then you'd meet, and now you're just on your phone. So if you are single, if you're lonely, there's a loneliness epidemic. Truly consider this tonight. Whatever you're doing right now, get out of your car, you're going to get dinner, you're going to put your phone away. Try it for an hour. Do that. That's my third lesson. Just try to limit it and then see what kind of connection do you have. It could just be connecting with someone you never see again. But when you make eye contact and you talk to someone and you have a connection, that also spikes our dopamine and our oxytocin, which is a lot healthier.
Yeah, I that happened to me when I was at the airport when we were leaving New York. And I sat down at the bar at the airport and I made a conscious effort. I'm not going to look at my phone. Even if I'm just staring forward, whatever. And then you do notice the people around you. And I actually met some really cool people. I'll probably never, ever see them again. Yeah. But they were great conversations. And it was funny too, because we were all Jewish. I was like, yay, it's the clan. It was just really fun and nice.
And you felt great leaving, and you've talked about it because you had a real connection. It doesn't even, it's not even means that you'll see him again. But we noticed this on the show. When I come in here after having like a great lunch with a bunch of friends, or I'm on someone else's show, I'm energized by the connections I have with humans in the world. Even though I'm sitting here behind a wall talking to all of you, it still feels good. And I'm here with all my people. All right, guys, we are going to take a quick break, and we come back on to your calls.
We have Lana, who's 43 in New York and has a question about multiple orgasms.
Ooh, hey, Lana. Thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks. So I have a question.
Yeah, talk to me about multiple orgasms. I love it.
I've had kind of a ramped up, desire the last couple of years, and have found that I would really like to have more than one orgasm during sex with my husband, but he thinks I'm being like greedy, which is kind of giving me a little bit of shame around my eagerness.
Yeah. I totally get that. Wow, that doesn't feel great to feel that he's feeling like you're being greedy around wanting another orgasm. Because the thing is, Lana, is that it's totally possible for many women to have multiple orgasms. No one tells us how to work our vaginas, our vulvas, our whole sex organs. But yes, it's totally possible. So, do you usually have one like with your husband during intercourse or before?
So I'm really lucky that I usually always have an orgasm while we're having sex.
Great.
It's just that I want to have another one. So sometimes if, let's say he goes down on me and I have an orgasm and it's great, and then he wants to keep going, but he wants to have an orgasm and he doesn't want to wait or give me time to kind of get there again.
Yeah.
And so then I find that even though it's been great sex, afterwards I'm still kind of wanting.
Yeah, that makes sense, Lana, because you're tapping into what is so amazing, that like you have all this sexual energy inside of you, and it's still building, right? Because that's so women are. So what happens with multiple orgasms is that our refractory period is a lot shorter than men's. Like men can have multiple orgasms, but it's like a whole thing, right? It's like tantric sex, it's breathing. But for women, our bodies are actually made for that. Like we can have them if we learn how to like circulate the energy of one orgasm, and then we breathe into it, and then we can kind of breathe and touch ourselves in other places, and then go back and have it. So yes, this is totally possible for you, and it's great that you're feeling that. I don't love that your husband isn't down with it, but I feel like having a talk with him about how you guys could actually make it happen, make him, get on board with it. Like, are you asking me specifically how to do it, as well as talking to him about it? Because he might.
Well, I think it's
Tell me.
I think it's my increased desire these last 2 years, like somehow being in my 40s, I don't know, I'm amped up, I'm ready.
Right.
Like I could have sex 3 times a day.
Wow.
And he's like, he's okay with like twice a week,
right,
which is understandable, but...
What do you attribute
so
your ramp up to the last few years?
Being in my 40s?
Yeah, I love it. No, because some people in their 40s are like, hormones, doesn't feel great. No, I love it that you are feeling it. So here's the thing, Lana. I think this is the kind of conversation that you have with him, like when you guys are out to dinner or, not in the bedroom, when you feel like he's like, says that you're being greedy. Because you might experience his reaction as you being greedy, or maybe he even said those words. But if you had a conversation with him like, I get so turned on by our sex, and lately I've just been craving you so much, so much, and I would love to work on experiencing like multiple orgasms, and then like letting him know what that might look like and how that makes you feel like even more pleasure, and that it's really not taking away from him, because I think he might just hear more work in his head right now, like, oh God, what do I have to do? But if you're like, no, like, because it sounds like after he goes down on you, maybe that's when it could happen more. Like,
yeah,
because usually
I think he almost feels like I'm not satisfied, though. That's not it,
Right. Explain that you have this amazing capacity as a woman, that we can have all these orgasms, and you'd love to experience that with him, and that you'd also, love to experience some other pleasure points for him if there's things that turns him on as well, things that he'd like to try, because, I don't know why. I mean, I have a good feeling that if he sees that you're actually going to be having more orgasms, that he's going to be into it. But maybe right now he feels like it's more work for him, when really it's just a matter of you explaining, like, I want to do this with you. Like, I want, when you go down to me, maybe you could explain to him that, you could bring in a toy, or he could bring in his fingers, or do it again with his mouth, or that when you have sex, just because you have one orgasm doesn't mean that you don't want to try for another one. And it's so hard to explain this to a partner when they've already said something like, you're being greedy. But I think the more you let him know that, like, you've such this capacity for pleasure and you want to have more orgasms, it's part of being a woman, it's really common, that hopefully he'll be down with your pleasure as his wife.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes there's like this like negative thing about women sort of having amped up libidos.
That's what we talked about earlier.
Kind of
yeah, no, there is. Yeah. There's total stereotype that men have the amped up libidos, and women don't want sex, and we have a headache tonight, and so women always feel like something's weird wrong with them, or like it's so strange. But I'm telling you, Lana, I've heard from more women than men over the last years. I've been doing this 14 years, who actually want more sex than their partners. I feel like that's been more of a problem, more of a challenge, and they're always surprised by it. So it's kind of, it sounds like it's not even just about the orgasm. It's about wanting to have more sex as well, more engagement, more interest from him, and not keep doing the same kind of things that you've been doing. And so maybe it's a bigger thing about, like, what does he want to try? Like, what would be turn on for him? Could you guys do some other things together, role playing, using toys, and the orgasms would be easier in that way as well. Like, definitely if you use toys. And so I think it's more about the state of having a conversation and then letting him know why it's important to you. And kind of like, because sex, I don't love the idea of sex being so linear, like you get yours and then he gets his and then you roll over and go to sleep, because prolonging sex and making it hot for both of you is just such a beautiful practice. So he probably just hasn't experienced it. So I think in a loving way, talking to him and then showing him what you mean, he might come on board. But if not, you can call me, because I will be here.
All right.
All right. Thanks for the call, Lana.
Let's talk to Gail, 63 in California, who wants you to speak about mindfulness during sex.
Hey, Gail. Thanks for calling. Let's talk about it.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
So I got married last November after 4 years with my husband. And I had been widowed at 58, and I had been married 26 years, and we almost never had sex, and I was so fine with it. But when I met my future husband, who's now my husband, we had the best sex life. It's so much fun.
I love this. Yeah.
I love this too. But the problem, so I know that 80% of women don't have orgasms from intercourse, and I'm fine with that. And there's only really one way for me to have an orgasm. But even still, I have so much distraction in my head. I will be in the middle of it, and I'll be thinking about him and what we're doing, or whatever fantasy I'm having, or whatever. And all of a sudden, I forgot to put the toilet paper away, or I wonder what I look like right now, or just so many thoughts. And I've heard you talk about mindfulness, and I love that word, and I would love to learn
Yeah, Gail, it's such a good question. No, you're so right because, well, first of all, the reason why I talk about mindful sex is because we are all so distracted, especially now with our phones and the to-do list, and we're distracted. Something's happening in the bedroom. Like, didn't put the laundry away. So, I mean, really, it's a practice. And it's kind of like if you know anything about, meditation, and it's really about learning to control our mind and not letting our mind control us. And so how I practice mindful sex is the first thing is recognizing that your thoughts are wandering. And what helps me when that happens is I've just gotten, I practice during masturbation as well. But like, let's say you're with him, your husband, and you start to think about, oh God, like, what does my body look like? Once you realize that thought is you, right? And then you think, okay, my biggest trick for that is to go, the second you're thinking, you go right back to your senses and what's happening in the moment. What I do is I take a deep breath, like I'll just be like, and then I listen to my breath, and then I do touch. Like, what am I feeling right now? Okay, his penis is inside of me. What does that feel like? Or my hands are on his back, and I feel his hands into my fingertips. What am I hearing, tasting, smelling? Because when you engage, so sometimes I'll like light up a candle, like I have like a sex candle, or just in my mind, it's like sex is happening, so I can smell the vanilla candle. I can hear the music playing. I touch the skin, and then when you engage yourself in your senses, you're immediately brought into the moment. It's a present moment, like it snaps you back in, because you're not good. And you might have to do this, Gail, like 60 times in a session before it happens. But eventually you're going to learn just to get back in the moment, because you know how it is, right? It's not easy to control your mind. But to me, does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. No, it totally resonates. And I guess I just have not done it consciously enough, or like I'll say to myself, stop thinking about that. You need to think about what are you feeling, what are you
right.
What's happening right now. But I don't get very specific with it, which I like those ideas.
Yeah, be specific.
And I think having a system would be good. I like that idea of having a sense that is associated only with when we're having sex.
Have your favorite candle. That's what I do. I have my candle, and then I do a deep breath. Like I'm because breath. The other thing is, like, a lot of us have a lot of anxiety during sex, but we hold our breath. So I'll just be like and then it's almost like my breath erases my thought too. And then I'm like smelling the candle, I'm breathing, and then I go back in. And then I've just found that after all this time, it really just helped. I'm like, the thoughts come and it's gone right away. I mean, it might come back again, but that's what and then go back into what you're feeling in your body at the moment. And you don't get mad at yourself. So it sounds like what you're doing is you're recognizing, but you beat yourself up like so many of us do. Like, God damn it, why am I thinking about the laundry? So without attaching to the thought, replace the thought with a breath, smelling the candle, and then you get back to the moment.
Okay. I'm going to keep working on that, Emily. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I found you.
I'm so glad you found me too, and I love your story, Gail. Really, I love that you found love and sex again. It's great. It's inspiring.
Thank you. I love your show. Life is not over in your 60s. It's just getting started for me.
Exactly, Gail. I know that's true. Thank you so much for calling and reminding all of us. I appreciate it. All right. So, how we doing? We got some calls, James?
We do. Okay, let's talk to Will, 35 in Canada. He says he caught his son in bed with another man and wants to know how to handle it.
Hey, Will.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, tell me everything. I'm great, Will. Thanks for calling. So tell me what's going on. What happened?
Anyways, I walked in. My son's, he's 15.
Okay.
And I walked in the house there, and he was having sex with his best friend, which is a male.
Okay.
And I walked in on him, and I didn't say anything or make any comments or anything, but I just would like to know how to address it without shaming him, I guess, or whatever, making him feel bad or making him think it's wrong or whatever.
That's such a good question, Will. Okay, so first of all, did you have you guys ever talked about it? Has he said he's gay or he prefers men, or was it just like a shock to you?
It was a shock to me. Well, it wasn't quite a shock to me because here's the other problem. Here is and that's part of my question is, I'm bisexual myself.
Okay. All right.
So, and I don't know if I should up and tell him I'm into the same thing and it's okay, or should I address it at a different angle?
That's okay. So I think the first thing is just letting him know that you love him and you support him and what he's doing, and you're not shaming him. I mean, I think the thing is making sure that he's having protected sex and making sure that he's with somebody. It was his best friend, you said. So I think also, I mean, for a lot of parents, it was like, maybe it was that he was doing it in your home. Like, there's also things that are like, Was he supposed to be at school? I mean, as long as everything was kosher, I think it's like you can say to him, I support you. And then you could also talk to him about, here's the thing. I believe that you could be honest with your son and let him know what you're into. So you're saying, how about his mom? Like, were you married and now does he know anything about your sexual history?
No, he doesn't actually. No, and the reason I'm saying that because from time I was 14 to about 22, I had a boyfriend. Okay. And then we kind of parted ways, and then I got married, and we had kids, and made with women and that stuff. And anyways, but I'm still very much bisexual, obviously, and I still enjoy it on occasion.
Okay. Well, I think it's more about right now. Well, here's the thing. If you think that it's germane to the conversation, I think that absolutely you can share that with him. But I would ask him about his, what his sexuality, and if it's something that, how he feels towards men, if this has been something that's been confusing to him. Does he have any questions for you? Let him know you understand, how he's feeling and about attraction and about. I think I would just ask questions and let him talk and let him know that you are there and that you're supportive of him.
Because back when I had my boyfriend, that was a long time ago, it was kind of unacceptable, right, to have to be that way. But now it's pretty much.
It really is. I mean, here's the thing.
It's pretty much.
Yeah, it is accepted now. No, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just have a lot. I do think you're right. I think it's a different time than when you were 20 years ago when it happened to you. So I feel like it could be really helpful if this is what you've gone through to share it with him. But first, I would make it more about him and asking him questions. And because he might feel some shame right now. And what I love so much is that because I'm sitting here bracing myself when we see your call. I don't know, are you upset that your son's with a man? But you sound so loving and like such a really caring parent that I think bringing it up casually and not ever, like, this is the thing about talking to our kids or anybody about sex, is you want to bring it up in a way that's, your tone is really upbeat, sitting down in a place where you guys are not distracted and you're talking in just a very loving, supportive, open that you're here for him, and like, listen to more what he says. Was it consensual? Was it something he's been thinking about? Has it been going on for a few years? I would just try to find out some more information, and then you're going to know, because I don't think it's right to keep secrets from our kids about sex when they want to know, right? So if you just led with that when he was 10, and no, I really don't. I think that to be open about your experiences, wouldn't you have loved to have someone to talk to when you were 15 about feeling bisexual or being with men? So I think, and keep it up, loving, and remember also, Will, it's not a one-time conversation. We often think, had the conversation with our kids about sex, check, mark it off the list. But it's not like that. It's just like where they're going to go to college or their diet or exercise. Talking about sex with your child is an ongoing conversation. And I think he's going to have such relief the sooner than later that you sit down with them and say, let's talk about what was going on. I totally support you. I love you. And I'm here for you. And I would just keep asking questions and make sure he talks, because you also remember this, Will. A lot of kids aren't comfortable hearing their parents talk about sex. So,
absolutely not.
Yeah, but I think it's okay to share with him your experience as well, for sure. And
like I said, I don't care. I love him anyways. If he wants to be gay, be gay. He can be what he wants. That's this kind of thing. That's kind of what I want to get across to him.
I think that you will do that just by telling him all of those things. You can tell him that, I don't know what you're thinking, but I think that that's really healthy. And not to overshare too much, obviously, but if he asks questions about safe sex or sexual positions, listen, here's what I think, you guys. If your kid's having sex, don't pretend that they're not, sweep it under the rug, whether they're with men or women, but, meet them where they're at. He's having sex for his pleasure. So if there's information you can learn, things that you've learned, I don't think that it's too much to kind of answer his questions and provide information where we don't just want him going online looking at porn or just figuring it out on his own. So I think if you're, his dad and you've got good information, you can share it. Yeah, Will. Great question.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Let me know how it goes, Will. All right, hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to my amazing team, Ken, Michelle, producer, Jamie, and Michael. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com.